Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from the Wall Street Journal, and I will have to give a shout out to my dad for sending me this article. So thank you, Dad. So this article from the Wall Street Journal is dated July 2nd, and it's more talk about Biden's brain being mush. This says Biden's worst liability isn't his infirmity, it's his judgment. He has a special talent for making the worst possible choice out of all available options. And I think this is something that we've known about him for a while, and just his administration is pretty much proof of that. So let us go into this editorial. It says Joe Biden's cheerleaders in the commentariat, having decided they can no longer pretend not to see the president's decrepitude, that's a good word, are begging him to not to run for re-election. A man so obviously infirm, they contend, isn't likely to beat Donald Trump. Democratic office holders think the same, though for a variety of reasons won't say openly. Amid all the talk of Mr. Biden's physical and mental impairment, however, an important point bears remembering. He would be in a far stronger electoral position, infirmity and all, if he didn't make so many stupid decisions. That is very true. So put Mr. Trump out of your mind. It's that, if that's possible, and consider only Mr. Biden's performance as a political leader, it's almost unfailingly bad. And it always has been. The blunder that knocked him out of contention for the Democratic nomination in 1987, as he plagiarized a large passage of an autobiographical words written by the British Labour leader Neil Kinnock, must be among the dumbest mistakes ever committed by a high-level American politician. But skip the bulk of the man's career and consider only the past 4 years. The choice of Kamala Harris as his running mate was the consequence of his promise to pick a woman and his need to please certain progressive interest groups. Yeah, he specifically said black woman. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, folks. But when you're narrowing down who you're going to pick to like a particular like racial group, it's like you're narrowing down the available talent pool. Just say you're going to pick whoever's the best candidate. Like this isn't a difficult thing. And if that particular candidate happens to be a woman and a black woman is the best person, then that's who it should be. Simple as that. It was unwise to narrow his options in that way. But even within those limits, there were some defensible choices. When the time came, Mr. Biden chose someone who speaks almost exclusively in gibberish. Isn't that the truth? Seems to possess no political or administrative skill, and, if poll numbers are to be believed, does nothing to keep black voters loyal to the president. 4 years later, Ms. Harris has achieved the considerable feat of exceeding her boss's unpopularity. Mr. Biden's impulsive and poorly planned decision in 2021 to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan appalled our allies, encouraged our enemies, stranded thousands of Americans as the Taliban reassumed control, brought about the death and imprisonment of untold numbers of Afghans who had aided U.S. forces, and precipitated a terrorist attack that killed 13 American servicemen. That there is a causal connection between this magnificently incompetent decision and Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine would appear obvious. The president's Ukraine policy has been an incoherent mess that only his aforementioned cheerleaders could praise. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and we end up having to fight about what to do and not to do, Mr. Biden said before the invasion, signaling that Russian aggression would be met with minimal U.S. protest. Since the invasion, Mr. Biden has favored aid to Ukraine but made no attempt to explain the necessity of it. He has meanwhile withheld the most necessary arms from Ukraine, and his administration tells the Ukrainians what they can and can't do with the weaponry. For example, forbidding Ukraine from firing long-range missiles known as ATACMS. ATACMS or something, I don't know, into Russian territory, and so allowing the Russians to keep their air bases out of range. The result, Ukraine can keep fighting, but can't win. Mr. Biden's Gaza policy seems similarly designed to bring grim consequences for U.S. interests, Israel, and his own political prospects. As with Ukraine, his instincts were right, his execution a jumble. For some reason I read that sentence. I thought I read that sentence wrong, but anyway, brain fart on my end. This administration rhetorically backs Israel and funds its war aims, thus stoking maniacal hostility on the numerically insignificant pro-Hamas left, which Mr. Biden, for nakedly political reasons, feels the need to appease. At the same time, he slow walks the aid and allows his national security advisors to lecture the Israelis and leak falsehoods to the press about targeting of civilians. The president's liberal Jewish supporters and donors, meanwhile, wonder if Mr. Trump is so bad. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza were in some sense foisted on Mr. Biden. Other blunders were self-generated. Even if you think the federal government ought to pay off some or all of student debt, there is no constitutional basis, as Nancy Pelosi herself said in 2021, and yes, she did, and go look that up, is for the president to effect that policy without authorization from Congress. Courts, including the Supreme Court, may have heard of them, have struck down most of what Mr. Biden proposed to do, meaning that his efforts will have minimal practical effect on voters before the 2024 election, which was plainly the aim. Meanwhile, large numbers of voters, having paid off their student loans or foregone college altogether, rightfully resent being asked to reward those who won't. Yep, that's where my tax money's going, is to pay off the student debt of stupid kids that went to Harvard that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. As Mr. Biden didn't have to indulge in the preposterous lie that Texas and Georgia were attempting to reimpose Jim Crow by returning their election laws to pre-pandemic norms. But he did. Conversely, having revoked the Trump administration's executive orders on the southern border, he might have taken some sort of action when illegal crossings reached record levels. But for 3 years, he did nothing. Perhaps his greatest political blunder of a career replete with them, Mr. Biden didn't have to challenge Mr. Trump to a debate, but he did. Well, make my day, pal, he said. I'll even do it twice. Yeah, how'd that go for you, buddy? Was that good? Did you like it? Anyway, is it true that Mr. Trump has also done many unwise and unaccountable things during his briefer political career? One difference is that every one of Mr. Trump's decisions, including the good ones, was savagely condemned by a self-deluded press, whereas Mr. Biden's failures and fiascos are ignored or excused. However you come down on this comparison, though, this as much is unassailable. Mr. Biden's genius for making counterproductive choices isn't mitigated by his declining mental capacity. If elected Democrats can't bring themselves to say what they think about his candidacy, they deserve to lose. Yeah, this is a kind of a very good short summary without going too deeply into anything about just the stupidity of Joe Biden's entire administration. So definitely look into the things that the author here said as well, because it's all true. It's all right there for you. But let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Do you agree with this? Do you not? Let me know why or why not. Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.